House will come to order. We're going to take up a couple of further actions. House will come to order. Where's Don? Members, we have some further actions we're going to take up. So if members will take their seats, I'm going to recognize in just a moment Representative Emery Donahue for a motion. Representative Donahue is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Speaker. I recommend that we agree with H.R. 1113 as presented.
Representative Donahue moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 113. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Resolution 1113 authorizes the grant of non-exclusive easements for the construction, installation, operation, and maintenance of facilities, utilities, roads, and ingresses and egresses.
Representative Donahue is recognized to explain the Senate substitute. Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Basically, every year we do the easement rights and everything that went over from the House, 100% approved. The Senate added a few properties to that. They all agreed. And on any property here, every representative or senator has an email or they're contacted on their property, and they were good, so we recommend that we agree with them.
Are there any questions? No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion, the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1113. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? All members voted. All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the motion to agree to Senate substitute to House Resolution 113, the yeas are 153, the nays are 0. And the House agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 113. Chairman Perkle is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make a motion that this House agree to the Senate substitution of H.R. 1116.
Representative Perkle moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1116. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Resolution 1116, a resolution authorizing the lease of certain state-owned property located in Chatham County, authorizing the conveyance of certain state-owned property located in Houston County, authorizing the lease of certain state-owned property located in Paulding County.
Representative Perkel is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This, similar to the last bill, is our annual conveyance. We just did the easement. This is conveyance. We annually do this as it relates to state properties. I would appreciate a green vote on this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman's yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 1116. All those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 116, the yeas are 150, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 116. Chairman Powell is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask this House to move to agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House to House Bill 353.
Representative Powell has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 353 as amended by the House. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 353 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 27 of Title 50 of the official code of Georgia annotated the Georgia Lottery for Education Act so as to provide that administrative procedures and actions regarding bona fide coin-operated amusement machines shall be subject to Chapter 13 of Title 50.
Chairman Powell is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment. Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. I want to bring everybody's attention. Hopefully you can remember this bill from last year. Awful lot of discussion. For years I've been embroiled being on the old House Industry Committee 34 years ago when I was elected, and have lived through the wars and the pits and the turmoil that surrounded the coin-operated amusement business in Georgia. A few years back, probably about 14 years ago, COAM enforcement was sent over to the lottery, as was the commissions that came out of it. Now, y'all may remember last year I had told you that these COAM machines, some people love them, some people don't, but it is what it is, and it's a real fact of life that people do like the game. The courts a long time ago ruled that non-cash redemption is legal in the state of Georgia, and that's what these machines are about. One of the things that we had attempted to do over the last 3 years was to basically put some tools into place that would stop any illegal cash payouts of machines. In the process of that, there's a lot of things that I'd like to tell you about government bureaucracy. Some of it ain't exactly real pleasant or real kind, the way they do rule and regulating. So last year we brought a bill forward, passed it out of this House, went to the Senate, came back, and now we've amended this bill. And I'm going to tell you a few things that's in the bill. First, it puts the COAM division of the lottery under the Administrative Procedures Act so that they have to publicize their rules and regs. We've had a situation we've suspected for years that the enforcement division over there in some points were being very unfair about how they administered justice to these folks, took their businesses, suspended their licenses, took their assets with not a howdy-do or an explanation. Quite frankly, there's been some litigation in the past about the unfair taking of property in this petition. So this puts that division of the lottery under the Administrative Procedures Act. There's a second section here that allows a portion, and this would be Representative Evans' language that she's been very passionate about. It would allow a portion of the reserves, that 10% of the excess reserves would be apportioned for educational purposes and programs. Ladies and gentlemen, that gives the House and the legislature a little bit more of authority that we've lost over the years in the appropriation process. $50 cap. The Class A machines that we all consider to be the kid games, the cranes and that kind of stuff, that for the last 50 years there's been a $5 cap, so it puts a $50 cap on whatever prize is in that type of a machine. It defines the gift cards. Finally, after 20 years or 18 years of being not able to do it, this would allow gift cards. It'll be a progressive system that it goes into effect, and in a couple of years it would be mandatory that they do gift cards. Right now they can do replays, or they can do lottery tickets, or they can do gift certificates. And that moves it forward to setting a standard that anyone that is caught paying out of cash, then they are too stupid to be in business. Fines. Class A, those same kid games we're talking about. As is typical of the regulators over there, they were fining these companies $1,000 for being late on renewing the license on a kid's game. Provides multi-year licensing. Right now on all of these A and B machines, where they pay an annual license, this would allow them to get a license for 1, 2, or 3 years just by multiplying the license fees. Clarifies non-cash redemption. Went a little bit further into this so that we move forward, that we're doing a clear and a definitive explanation. Allows kiosk machines. At some point when these non-cash redemption cards are issued, these kiosks that can be possibly located in these would take the place of the clerks, so that we're trying to remove any possibility of any wrongdoing in any of these stores. Auctions. It allows the Georgia Lottery Commission to do one competitive master license once every 3 years, but also, and more importantly, to get rid of any signs of impropriety that has been in the past. That if a company loses their master license, then instead of just being steered to another master to buy, then they'll be auctioned off. Ladies and gentlemen, that's common sense fairness in government. Opinion letters. Like the revenue, any agency that is charged with formulating rules and regulations that we've given them the authority, most of these will issue opinion letters, so this keeps those people from stepping afoul. That's been asked for in the past, and the COAM division at the lottery has steadfast refused to do it, so that to go in at some point and catch somebody for making some kind of error that if they'd been given an opinion that they would have known better. Charitable institutions, veterans groups, VFWs, AMVETs, Legions. These will now be able to have these machines with a 50% rule being expanded to the 3-month quarterly cycle instead of a monthly cycle. Merchandising. The people that serve, the masters that bring machines in, and I'm not talking about these machines, it's not the old days when these machines were the $500 or $1,000 machines. These machines, these entertainment machines today are up to $20,000+ a piece. This basically spells out, so it's not considered to be an inducement for the business. They can bring in the stools, they can bring in the rugs, they can bring in the signage. Believe it or not, the Lottery Commission has always said that if a master decides to put a sign up in that store that tells people what the rules of the game are and that it's non-cash, that was considered an inducement. This clearly spells out what they can put in as an inducement. 1099 forms, ladies and gentlemen. 1099 forms. You would think that any company or anybody else that is doling out any receipts issue a 1099 to the recipients. They refused to do that in the past. We're telling them at that division, you've got to issue a 1099. Who is that good for? Quite frankly, it's good for the state of Georgia, so now nobody can skip around and not pay any taxes on any of this. And then finally, last but not least, tax increase. You know, as you may remember last year, that I told you that these COAM machines are the highest taxed industry in the state of Georgia. Not only do they pay extraordinarily high fees for licenses, for the stickers that go on the machines and such as that, but they also pay a straight up 10% across the board on whatever goes into the machine. 5% comes out of the retailer, 5% comes out of the master. We were asked at the start of the session to raise that tax from 10 to 13%. There were initiatives of some of the leadership of the House for something that I considered to be very good, and that was to do universal pre-K. Well, as is usual in dealing with the governor, $160 million was the formulary for pre-K. $200 million would be the magic number to do universal pre-K. At that point, I am told that the governor refused, even though your state lottery has $2.2 billion in reserves. $2.2 billion in reserves. So when brought up to these folks in the COAM business, they agreed. Now, I will tell you that I'm very pleased that they did agree. They didn't balk. They understood that's the price, and they support very much the pre-K movement in this state. Now, that being said, I got a few other comments I want to make. You know, I told y'all last year what a hard issue this is to deal with, because you have too many people roaming around that have an interest, whether it's the individual masters or the retailers or the companies that serve the manufacturers and such like that. And everybody wants to game the system for their own benefit. Well, I want to give credit to the Speaker and his staff for ferreting all of this out and to stepping in to try to help that. Am I pleased with everything that was taken out? No, I'm not. But do I think that this is a good bill as passed right now? Yes, I do. Because one, it creates a gift card system instead of to take away any idea of any criminal activity of paying out cash. Do I believe that it cleans up some stuff over with the regulators? Yes, I do. I told you last year, if we didn't do anything else but gift cards and put them under the Administrative Procedures Act, that we will have achieved something at that point. So, ladies and gentlemen, with my thanks to the Speaker and his staff for tolerating my insistence of this, I want to thank them, and I would appreciate the members of this House voting for this bill. And that, Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
You have several. To your left, Representative Stacey Evans has a question. Representative Evans.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I certainly will.
Isn't it true that you and I have talked about legislation around COAM industries for a while, and that I very much appreciate your hard work in this legislation?
I hope you do, because it sure has been a painstaking affair.
We're going to have trust falls later. Further inquiry, or will you yield for one more?
Certainly.
Isn't it true that I have historically not wanted to support any changes in legislation around the COAM industry without an increase in the percentage that the industry pays the state for HOPE and pre-K, and that not only does this bill do that, but as you mentioned, it also adds language that will start freeing up the over $1 billion in excess reserves that we have sitting in the Lottery for Education Fund, which will ensure on the low end probably $50 million a year for pre-K, and on the high end $100 million. And this could be a game changer for the state, for families, and for kids, and that I literally can't thank you enough for your work that's gotten us here today.
The lady certainly, she's very complimentary, and I appreciate that, and she knows from what she speaks about the funds over at the Lottery Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To your left, Representative Werkheiser. Chairman Werkheiser has a question. Mr. Chairman, if you'll yield.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Speaker. And Chairman, for yield, I want to echo Stacey Evans' comments about, I don't think anybody in this building knows more about this industry, and I appreciate you cleaning it up. Just a question on 31, because I'm always for adding more stuff to the APA. What can you help me with saying removing Article 2 from the APA?
If you would give me the line number of that bill.
Line 31 and 32.
Yes, sir. That's the language that puts the COAM division under the Administrative Procedures Act.
Okay, so it puts them under because it says shall be exempt on 32.
You know, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't write the bill.
But you're
But
saying
you know,
it does
sometimes
add them
sometimes as
because,
in life, lawyers write things backwards to make them
okay.
mean what they're supposed to
I'm
mean.
going to trust your judgment because, like I said, I appreciate your effort in cleaning up this industry, and I've always been amazed at your knowledge, and I appreciate your work.
I want to thank you very much for the support.
You have one last question, if you'll yield. Representative Jasmine Clark, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you have worked extremely hard on this, and so I just want to make sure that I am understanding when a person gets one of these gift cards, they redeems one of the gift cards, are they allowed to buy firearms and alcohol with their winnings?
They can buy any legal product.
So, including firearms and alcohol.
Any legal product, but if they won enough points to buy a firearm, I say they're extremely lucky and they need to go to Vegas.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, if there's no more questions, I'll step aside and I'll apologize to some of the interest in the state that things were taken out that could have been of a help to them, like a graduated penalty system, in Contract 101 for interpretation, but maybe we'll get that in if it goes to the Senate. And I do want to thank the Speaker and his staff for being so courteous to put up and tolerate me. And that, Mr. Speaker, I'll step aside and ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your hard work. Is there an objection to adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 353 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? For what purposes, Representative Houston Rice? Is that a vote?
No, I didn't. I waved.
She waved. I saw somebody messing with your buttons anyway. I figured it was one of them. I won't go any further than that. All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House of HB House Bill 353, the yeas are 142, the nays are 16. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute as amended by the House. Chairman Martin is recognized for a motion. Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to House Bill 985 as amended by the Senate.
Representative Martin moves that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 985. 985. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 985 to be entitled, an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 3, Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to scholarships, loans, and grants so as to abolish the Georgia Higher Education Assistance Corporation.
Chairman Martin is recognized to explain the Senate amendment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the House Bill 985 comes back to you intact as we passed it, with the addition of language that repeals a portion of an act passed by this legislature in 2019 that was found to be incorrect by the court. So what we're doing is cleaning up an act based on the court finding that you see in Part 3. That's the only thing they've done. This is required. The lawyers in the House, the Senate, and the Governor's Office agree we need to do that. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for favorable consideration of this agree to the Senate amendment of House Bill 985.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 985, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 985, the yeas are 154, the nays are 0. The House has agreed to the Senate amendment. Chairman Petrie is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we accept the substitute, the Senate substitute to House Bill 244.
Chairman Petrie moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 244. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill number 244 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 entitled 27 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to game and fish, so as to extend the date by which rules and regulations prescribed by the Board of Natural Resources must be in effect.
Chairman Petrie, you're recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The changes here, this bill, as you may recall, is a department bill from DNR. It updates some of the issues we're dealing with from passing in 2019, our oyster mariculture bill. That is primarily what the bill is about. The changes before you really are nothing more than housekeeping. You'll notice on line 162 and 166, we had to change effective dates in the measure because this measure, of course, was brought last year, and so we had to move the years back. Those are the only substantive changes, Mr. Speaker, and if there are no further questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 244, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. All members voted. All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 244, the yeas are 156 and nays are 1. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute. Chairman Leverett is recognized for a motion. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 563.
Representative Leverett moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 563. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill number 563 to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 9, and Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated the Fair Employment Practices Act of 1978, so as to provide for hearing before an administrative law judge.
Chairman Leverett is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 563 was passed out of the House last year. It was a bill that it was a department bill that made certain changes to the procedures utilized by the Commission on Equal Opportunity for hearing complaints by state employees and Board of Regents employees regarding discrimination. We were changing that from a special master system, which was more expensive, to utilizing the Office of State Administrative Hearings. The change was very technical. It was just a cross-reference in the statute needed to be cleaned up. Otherwise, it's substantially what we passed out of here, and I would request your favorable approval. Mr. Speaker, I'll stand for any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield the will. Ask your favorable consideration of the motion.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 563. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. All members voted. All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the House agreed to the Senate substitute of House Bill 563. The yeas are 158, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute. All right, members, this House is going to stand at ease until 4 p.m. That's about 20 minutes. This House will stand at ease until about 4 p.m.